Most indoor hamster habitats offer total security, unlimited food, and a reliable spinning wheel. But from a sensory perspective, a traditional cage is a static vacuum. The air smells the same every day, the bedding rarely changes texture, and the environment is entirely predictable. Biologically, hamsters are built to roam. They are instinctual explorers that interpret their reality almost entirely through olfaction, their highly developed sense of smell. Without new scents to process, a massive portion of their brain remains underutilized. Taking a highly vulnerable prey animal outside poses obvious risks. In a backyard ecosystem, a hamster is suddenly exposed to unpredictable weather, unfamiliar terrain, and a towering environment where almost everything is larger than they are. Moving from the safety of the living room to the yard forces a hamster to process more environmental variables in 5 minutes than they normally would in a week. Providing this level of mental stimulation requires moving past the indoor bubble through a meticulously planned expedition. The first step is mitigating the risk. We constructed a custom escape-proof playpen with reinforced walls that block predators but remain open to the bare ground, creating a highly controlled zone for exploration. Our explorer, Pip, crosses the threshold. He steps out of his familiar carrier and feels the open air for the very first time. Notice the rapid, continuous twitching of his nose. Stepping onto the grass instantly transitions Pip from a sensory void into a landscape dense with information. He is actively downloading complex environmental data, pulling in thousands of new chemical signals per second. The sheer volume of new data requires his brain to work at maximum capacity to categorize each new smell. From down here, the backyard is a dense forest of sharp grass blades, rough topsoil, and patches of damp moss. Every single texture carries its own unique, potent smell. Chemical signatures bind to receptors in Pip's nasal cavity, triggering a cascade of activity in his olfactory bulb. These form a map of invisible pathways. Pip tracks these scents, pausing where trails split to make specific choices on which line to follow. If you're fascinated by watching Pip decode this tiny, complex world, take a second to subscribe so you don't miss his next expedition. What look early by a complex chemical map. Soon, the tracking gives way to physical interaction. Pip stops inspecting the air and zeroes in on a fallen dandelion, grabbing it with his front paws to inspect the textured surface. Moving to a patch of bare soil, he lowers his head and starts aggressively digging, sending loose dirt flying backward to carve out a trench. The texture and smell of the loose earth provide the specific environmental feedback that justifies the energy spent on burrowing. His brain recognizes the cues for shelter building, prompting a drive to dig that cannot be replicated on a plastic cage floor. The outdoor ecosystem provides the context that makes these ancient survival behaviors useful, exercising Pip's body and his mind through the direct application of his instincts. After 20 minutes, the expedition concludes. Pip is gently scooped up and returned to the quiet, familiar confines of his indoor enclosure. Almost immediately, he sits back on his haunches and begins a meticulous grooming routine, scrubbing his face and ears before quickly rearranging his paper bedding into a tight nest. This specific grooming behavior is more than just cleaning. It is a physiological indicator that he has shifted from a high alert state back to a resting state. It allows his nervous system to process the session and return to a baseline level of activity. This transition from the intense stimulation of the yard to the total security of the nest creates a contrast that leads to deep, restorative rest. The hamster isn't just tired, he is exhibiting the low-stress behaviors of an animal that has successfully navigated his territory and returned home. This comparison tracks the frequency of natural behaviors like scent tracking, foraging, and active burrowing. The data shows that time spent in a diverse environment leads to a significant increase in these active behaviors compared to hours spent on an exercise wheel. Achieving these results demands strict execution. Unsupervised outdoor roaming is dangerous for small pets. These excursions only provide benefits when utilizing a fully secured, predator-proof enclosure. By setting up a controlled barrier over a patch of safe grass or soil, any responsible owner can replicate this process and provide their pet with a significantly more complex and engaging life. Share this video with the pet lovers in your life so we can spread the word about sensory enrichment. And if you want to see where Pip goes next, click the playlist on screen for more of his tiny backyard expeditions.